Hey everybody, Al Iverson here. Today in our series, Your Email Authentication and Deliverability Questions Answered, we're going to answer the following question. Will Microsoft get on the bus? What do I mean by that? Let's back up a minute. Let's talk about what changed in deliverability and authentication land starting late last year. Back in October of 2023, Yahoo and Google announced enhanced sender requirements governing email authentication, complaint rates, unsub methodology, encryption, DNS settings, and so forth. But Microsoft was conspicuously absent from that announcement. They weren't a part of that. Nothing from them on that very topic. So, what about Microsoft? Is Microsoft going to do the same? But more on those requirements, right? I'm not going to spend the next 10 minutes recapping all this. There's a whole bunch of other stuff online and better places to have that discussion. But at a high level, here's all the requirements, or the starting point for the requirements. The keys, from my perspective, really being email authentication, SPF and DKIM in particular. And then if you're sending enough volume, you ought to have a DMARC record. They've got that explicitly called out. I'm going to go one step further and say, no matter what your volume is, you really should have DMARC in place. All this other good stuff too. It's all translated sort of from best practices over time. Now it's been sort of upgraded to be the actual sort of printed guide and requirements. So that's what Yahoo and Google did. They announced that back in October. That went mostly into force in February. Some of the enforcement stuff is still ongoing. There's some one-click on some stuff we're just hitting enforcement on it now. Point being that that's where we are today. Now back to that question. What about Microsoft? Is Microsoft going to update their sender requirements similarly? And I've got an answer for you. It's a little bit of what I read and what I saw, and it's also what I think. And that is yes, undoubtedly. I've got an asterisk there because there's a couple of ways you can interpret this. But let's start with this, right? On May 30th, Twilio held a webinar with folks from Valimail, Yahoo, Microsoft, and Google, as well as Len Schneider from Twilio. And they talked about the current state of deliverability, email authentication, sender requirements, etc. There's a link to that there you can find the recording at that short link. And on that webinar, the representative from Microsoft was asked, hey, how are things progressing there? Is Microsoft going to implement similar sender requirements? They didn't get very specific, but they did say it's a question of when, not if. Meaning, ultimately, that they think it's coming, that it's very likely that at some point Microsoft's going to have similar, more stringent sender requirements akin to what Yahoo and Google have already published. Now, right after that, Valimail, hey, that's me, that's us here at Valimail. We published a blog post highlighting that, talking about the mention of potentially updated Microsoft sender requirements in the future. If you want to read more about that, there's a link there. But the point being that even if none of this happened, even if this discussion didn't happen or they weren't asked the question, this is just an evolution of email best practices anyway. This is kind of where things are headed already. So even if none of this happened, I would still be saying yes. That it's very clear to me that those requirements are going to become broad, to become sort of the baseline requirements for just about any mailbox provider that you're sending mail to. We were heading that way anyway. Speaking of where we're headed, one last note there is I want folks to stop and think about DMARC policy. Now, in the Yahoo and sender requirements, they say that P equals none is good enough, is what the requirement is from a deliverability perspective. That means that you set up a DMARC record, you put in this policy of none, and you can set up monitoring for your domain or not. But either way, you're not protecting your domain. You're not telling mailbox providers what to do with mail that purports to be from you, but isn't really from you. So you're not set up to fully protect yourself against phishing and spoofing. That's why it's really important that P equals none should just be a start of your sort of DMARC journey. It should not be the end. If you think back a couple months ago in the news, there was North Korea, news that North Korea was actively targeting domains with a P equals none policy, meaning they've set up a DMARC policy, DMARC record, but their domains are not protected. And North Korea was exploiting, spoofing, phishing those domains to try to hack into systems to gain intelligence about their sphere and influence in the world. So though I don't necessarily think that you're about to become a target of North Korea, where one bad guy comes, others are sure to follow. So make sure you look at DMARC a little more closely and figure out how best to utilize it to protect your domains. Don't just go to the minimum that P equals none. That does not protect your domain against phishing and spoofing. And everybody gets spoofed eventually. So pay attention to that. we're here to help with your DMARC journey if you have any questions. I'm here to help answer your questions as well. Thanks for watching today. Feel free to drop me a line. There's my email address. Don't forget to visit our website and blog at valimail.com. Thanks. Have a great day.